What's up, it's Marco, Sage of Soccer, and today I'll be talking about the top 100 U.S. men's national team prospects heading into college. And look, you saw the video length, you saw the title of it. I think at this point you're either on board or not, so I'm going to take my time with this introduction. And like and subscribe, because this, I don't ask for that normally. This took so long to make. But anyway, when it comes to college, I understand its perception in the U.S. men's national team community, and I understand why. But I do still think it's a valuable resource. We do have a lot of players who come from college who make the national team. And I think it's very good for players because just having that option coming out of an academy if you don't make it to just have a scholarship, I think that's really good. Something that I think should be adopted in some way elsewhere. And I really think it's something valuable for this team. And it can really help us. And I don't think college is the problem with our national team. I think Jack Harrison proved that if you're a really good player, it's not going to hold you back. And this is just U.S. men's national team prospects, though the best players in college are honestly a lot of times international nowadays. But I just want to talk about the best American players who can impact the national team. So yeah, let's get into it. This video will be covering two sections of players who come from the top academies and clubs throughout the country. That's where the best players are going to come from. And I'm also going to split and cover some high school players because it's something that's such a big deal in sports in America, and high school soccer really gets no love. So I figured I'd talk about 50 players from there as well. So and also keep in mind I'm under no pretenses that every single player I talk about is going to be a great player. Like, it's a success if any of them make the MLS. But this is going to be a completely positive video. I think it's unproductive to poke holes in the games of really young players, so just keep that in mind. Like, the closest will be if, like, it's something that can realistically be improved upon. So, for example, if, like, a player is, like, 6'2", but really doesn't have much muscle, like, it's realistic for them to fill out and add some strength to them. I think that's something I can say, but keep in mind, this is just going to be positive. That being said, let's get into our first player. Up first is Keenan Hott, a midfielder who's going to be going to Duke. So Keenan Hott comes from a variety of clubs. He started out at the New York Red Bulls, then ended up at Hartford. He's been playing in MLS Next with New York City FC, and he's got a good amount of experience, MLS Next Pro games, USL Championship games from his time with Hartford and New York Red Bull too, and he looks like a top player, a really good technical ability. Like, I'm going to be talking a lot about players, and if they have it technically, like, they just have the baseline needed to be successful as a top player, and he has that. Very good athleticism. He has the speed and strength needed. Good frame as well. Like, he's a tall enough player. Passing is just a real strength of his. He can pick out some really good passes. Good bite in him defensively, and a really good soccer IQ. Like, he's a top prospect at the 8 position. Like, there's this one resource, Top Drawer Soccer. It helped me out a ton making this video. I don't really agree with their ratings too much, but they compile up like youth caps extremely well. It's really valuable for that. And they list them as 5 stars, and the only players who are listed at 5 stars are like going pro. So it shows how highly he's rated. He's going into college because he really wants to get an education, which fair enough. And I think he's a top player, somebody we should definitely be looking out for, and he will be a pro. He's the closest thing to a sure thing in this entire video. And I'm really looking forward to see what he can do. Next, we have Ethan Johannes, a defensive midfielder, a 6, who's going to be going to Wake Forest. And before I talk about him, I want to talk about like a quick topic, and that's the idea of bounce-back players. So I feel like when you talk about college soccer, it's not really the level of like a college football. I'd say it's more similar to something like JUCO football, which still produces great players. But if you've seen Last Chance U, you've seen a good amount of players who start out at D1, start at a high level, but then go to college as kind of like a bounce back. And we're going to see a lot of players who are coming back to America to bounce back, and Ethan's one of those players. A big reason why is the pandemic. A lot of these players, like the age range they left for Europe like right as 2020 started, and it hurt a lot of these players. So we have a good amount of talented players coming into college, and I think that's something we have to keep in mind, that this is a really good resource to help these players bounce back. Try to get back to a really high level. Ethan himself, I really like him as a player. He's a former youth national, as well as Keenan Hott, if you forgot to mention that. And he could be that guy defensive midfield. The athleticism and technical ability is there. Really good ball control. I really like the one-touch passes he can play. He gets around the field very well. You can see he's quick. He covers a lot of grounds. Good defensive instincts. A bit reckless at times, but I feel like that might be pretty good. Good to see somebody with a bit of edge to him. The main problem is he hasn't played in a long time. He was at AZ, maybe they pronounce it AZ in Netherlands, I'm not sure. And he ended up without a club, and now he's finally back into the scene. He kind of disappeared like Josh Panadath did a while ago, and I'm really excited to see him back at Wake Forest. We have a lot of good players going to Wake Forest, and he's a good place for him to develop, and he looks like a top prospect who I'm excited to watch. Up next is a really top prospect. We have Chris Staggard, an attacker who's going to Northwestern. And I'm saying attacker because he really doesn't have a position defined yet. He's still a really young player. He's actually a 2005 player. This list is primarily going to be 2003s and 4s, but we have a couple of really young players who I'm pretty sure are just declaring early to be able to get to college. He comes from Charlotte FC, and he looks like a top prospect. Right now he's 5'10", but he might still be growing. I could easily see him getting taller, and really talented attacker. Great dribbler, a ton of athleticism, fast and strong. He can put the ball into the back of the net, really tidy on the ball, and looks like just a really promising prospect. Like, I think you don't understand, being a 2005, I mean, he's eligible for the next U20 cycle. Like, we could very realistically be seeing him in the U20 tournament come 2024. We had a pretty weak group of strikers. Well, I shouldn't say that because Ricardo Pepi exists, but during the last U20 group, we had a pretty weak striker selection available. We were playing with false nines a lot. That is not going to be an issue come 2024, and Chris Staggard is a big part of a really good striker group, and I'm really excited to watch him play in college. Declaring early, he could definitely have stayed in Charlotte. He might be a homegrown after this year. I'm not exactly sure why he's playing this early, but it's going to be fun to watch. Up next is Tyrone Caramanchi, another 6th defensive midfielder who's going to UCLA. If that name sounds familiar to you, it's because I've talked about him before in this channel. He was a part of the U20 group this year at the U20 championship. He was part of the traveling squad. He wasn't on the actual roster. I think he was an alternate for this tournament, but if he was good enough to be in that conversation, you know he's a really good player. He's a defensive midfielder who I'd say is a bit in the Danny Lavo mold. Really natural on the ball, but defensively, that's not his game. He's more of a creative type player, but I have to say he's not terrible defensively. He has good work rate that should cover him at this level, but it's mostly his on-the-ball ability. He's got a great feel of the game, another one of those extremely technical players, and I'm honestly pretty surprised that San Jose wasn't offering him a contract because he looks really talented. We're going to get into a couple more San Jose players, but just a really good player, another guy you can expect to be a great player, like the creativity that he has, ability to keep the ball in possession. He looks like a really talented 6 prospect, and it's going to be good to watch him at UCLA. And we also have a San Jose teammate up next, Tristan Viviani. He's a left back going to San Diego State. And San Diego State weirdly have a really good class. They're actually a part of the Pac-10 or Pac-12, Pac-6. There's only 6 teams that have soccer in Pac-12 this year. Another guy from San Jose State. He's actually the first in a dual national panic, though I don't really think it's that big a deal. He played for the Malta U18 squad. I think it was just a camp. He didn't play for them. But I don't think we have to worry about him committing to Malta. But a very good left-back prospect. He's somebody I like his athleticism, really good offensively. He's also 6 feet tall, and his passing is pretty good. Like, he honestly could either become a left or winger as well as a left-sided center back. I'm not sure. I think he has the ability to do both, but just as a left back, I think he's a really talented prospect. Should Jonathan Gomez not be there, and should Kevin Paredes be more of a right winger, I could definitely see Viviani pushing for a spot on the U20 team if he has a really good year. He's that talented, a really good player, like the athleticism, good on the ball, can attack very well, and somebody to keep an eye on. After San Jose, we're going to go to Atlanta United, and they have 2 really talented prospects, Amari Saley and Nigel Prince. Amari Saley is a winger who's going to Virginia University. He looks like a really talented player. I like him as a winger. He's got really good pace, dribbling, and the end product is there. He seems to have a great mind as well, makes good decisions in the final third, and talent just oozes from him. Really talented dribbler, can get by players, put in good crosses, come up with goals. Honestly, it's weird to me that Atlanta are letting him get away because he looks like a top prospect. I can see him having a lot of success at Virginia. He's the first of many Virginia attackers, not even the only Virginia attacker who's coming from Atlanta. We'll get to him later, but looks like a really top prospect that I'm looking forward to seeing. And then Nigel Prince, a center back who's going to Northwestern University. Northwestern have a really good class this year, a couple of really talented players. He had a couple of games in the USL Championship, and he was apparently called up, or was on the provisional roster for the Jamaican U20 team, though he declined an appearance, which I think that means don't really have to worry too much about him dual national right now. But looks like a really talented player. He's a great athlete, and I mean a great athlete at defense. Solid defender. I think Miles Robinson mold is probably what I'm thinking of, especially because he comes from Atlanta. Like, probably could be a football player if he wanted to. Like, really talented, speed, strength, aerial ability. He's a good player. Now, he's not a natural at the ball at his feet, but I wouldn't have mentioned it if I hadn't seen it getting a good amount better. In the USL, he has shown some improvement, and I think he's willing to drive the ball forward. I think that there's potential for him to be really good there. Now, I'm not sure if he'll ever be a complete natural, but it's getting better. I think he might be good there. And he probably is a homegrown if they don't have Miles Robinson and George Campbell in front of him. He looks like a really top player, and Northwestern's going to be fun to watch. Next, we're going to my Philadelphia Union, and it's a good thing that they're my club because Philadelphia Union players don't put out highlight tapes, apparently, which I think is understandable. I think a lot of these guys come into college really early, so at that point, you don't really need to put one out. Some guys do, and thank you to those weirdos. But, I wasn't, watching this team, I wasn't keeping up with them a good amount. It would be really tough to make this. So starting things off, we got Samuel Jones, a center back, who's going to be going to Wake Forest. Yeah, I mentioned a really good Wake Forest class. He was a US U19 player really recently, and he seems to be a player who just consensus everybody rates. All people following the youth national teams, they rate him. He gets call-ups. Everything is really in line. The only reason he's not a homegrown is because he's from Philadelphia. Now, he's another center back who's a very good athlete and really good 1v1 defender. I'd say Prince probably has a bit more athleticism. I'd say Samuel Jones is right up there with him, a little bit better as a 1v1 defender. He is 6 feet tall, but he's very good in the air. He just needs stuff to improve on, but I think they come naturally. His defensive positioning, that'll get better as he gets older, gets more experienced. And Prince could get a bit better on the ball, but he's a really solid player. As I mentioned before, impressed just about everybody. And if he wasn't in Philadelphia and they didn't have a log jam of homegrown players, I think he probably would have gotten a homegrown contract. And next, we got 2 players who are a couple of just utility players. I don't really have a position for them. We got Jackson Gilman, who's going to Pittsburgh, and Jack Jasinski, who's going to Princeton. Jackson Gilman, he's can do just about everything on the field, midfield, every position on the back line. He's done it in MLS Next Pro, which is very high level. I don't know what position he'll stick with. Pitt has him listed as a defender, and he is 5'11", so maybe right back would be the best spot for him. While he has played left back, he's right-footed, and I think he's a lot better in the build-up play if he's on the right-hand side. He can get forward pretty well, has a pretty good cross on him. I don't think he has the elite athleticism as some of the other players we talked about, but he's good enough to play. A very good prospect, and I think he's another guy who's a pro if he doesn't come from Philadelphia with that big logjam there. And then Jack Jasinski, he's another player. I think I rate Jackson Gilman a little bit higher, but Jasinski's versatility I think is a bit better. He's 6'1", he definitely could play that center back position. He has the height for it. I think his left foot's a bit better. I think he'd do a job at left back very well. He's the guy who can do a lot. Jim Curtin singled him out as somebody who's going to be a pro player. Really exciting to watch him. Somebody to watch in the Ivy League. He's the first Ivy League player we'll have. We've got to get a couple more later. But yeah, some really talented players out of Philadelphia. Up next, we're heading to New England, where you have 2 talented players who are going to be going to Georgetown. Both these guys were a part of their MLS Next U19 team that won their division, and I think there's some really good players. First, we got Jack Paniatu, who is a very good player. He's recently involved with the US U19 squad, and I think he could be a top player. He was the Golden Boot winner at that U19 tournament, or the MLS Next Pro U19 tournament, and he's very technically strong and always pops up with goals from midfield. Pretty good feet while he's dribbling. I really like his movement. I think Quinn Sullivan is a pretty good comparison. I've seen Diego Luna as well. He's a good burst of speed. He's pretty quick. somebody who he was on the news when he was 12, which is actually a theme of New England players going to Georgetown. But yeah, he's somebody who looks really good. He's starting to impress a lot of guys in the USSF. He's been getting some call-ups, and looks like he'd do really well at Georgetown. Georgetown, they rotate their players a lot, so even as a freshman, I'm expecting him to play. Like, they were platooning goalkeepers in their title-winning season, I think. Like, they could be really good. He's going to be fun to watch. And his teammate, Matamos Rumley, who is a left-footed player. I think he's going to be playing left back or center back. I'm not sure which. He's 5'11", but he's a 2005 player, our second of 4, and he could easily still be growing. And he's not bad in the air, so I think he could be a center back. He's good on the ball. I think his passing was very good, and he's a really highly regarded player. Like, in that 2005 group, he could be that left-footed center back come the U20 World Cup, or U20, hopefully World Cup, U20 CONCACAF Tournament 2024. He's really rated highly. I think Georgetown's a good place to go. They've sent a lot of players into the pros lately. Something about him, I mentioned it earlier, he was the NFL punt, pass, and kick champion. That's something. So if you want to know that, you do now. And a couple of really good players coming out of New England. Sticking with the theme of teammates, up next we got 2 players who didn't play together at the club level or the youth international level. They played together as futsal players on the youth futsal national team. Austin Brummett and Javen Van Deventer. Austin Brummett is a striker who's going to San Diego State, and he looks like a top prospect. He comes from New York Red Bulls Academy, so he's been playing in the USL Championship. He's looked good. He's had some good moments in the championship. He's 6 foot tall, but he's very good in the air. Can go up and win headers with the best of them. Like height isn't the only thing important at winning headers, and he is good at that. He's a good finisher. I wouldn't call him like particularly fast. Like, he's not a burner like Chris Staggard, but he's mobile. He gets around the field. He's got a good first touch, good passing. Like, he's capable of playing the 10. He has good movement as a striker. Like, he's an intelligent player. Like, he plays futsal. He knows the game. Like, I think he's the guy who can become a top striker and somebody to look out for in that San Diego State class, which is very good. And next, Javen Van Deventer. He's a midfielder, probably an 8 or a 6. He's a defensive-minded midfielder. He's going to Northwestern, continuing their amazing class. He comes from Sporting Kansas City, and he's another guy who's a current U20 player. He's called up, not current, but he was called up really recently, and I think he's going to be very good. As a player, he's 5'9", but a good defensive midfielder. He's kind of described as like a workman player. Like, he'll get around, break up plays, but I feel like he's got a lot to unleash as a player with his technical ability. I was watching him play in a good amount of USL games, and when he's on the ball, like, he kind of plays a little bit timid, but I think with him being a futsal international and the moments that I saw where he was going with the ball, and the fact that the U20 team did call him in, I think there's a lot of technical ability waiting to be unlocked there. I think that Javen Van Deventer could be a really top player, and it's going to be exciting to watch him at Northwestern. That's a really good class. We have one more player to talk about later, but I'm thinking that he was called into the U20 camp for a reason, and he's going to be someone to watch. While we're international, let's head over to Germany and talk about Nicholas Dossman, a center back who's going to be going to Michigan. He comes from Mainz in Germany. He's a former youth international, and he looks like a very good player. He's a 6'1". He's strong, composed on the ball. He reads the game very well, and I think he's very good playing out of the back. He's a left-footed center back out of Germany. We've seen success with that before. I think he's had some very good decision-making when he's on the ball. I really liked his first touch. Like, the only thing really not elite with him is his speed, which he is sounding more like John Brooks as I keep going. But, when you're a center back, speed isn't the only thing that matters, and he looks like a really good player, one of the top center backs that I've seen. He helped Mainz win their regional league above Bayern Munich's youth team. Like, that's very good. Again, he's a player who's the pandemic hurt his chances in Germany, but going to Michigan, good environment. Big Ten's pretty good. And I think it's below the ACC, but arguably the second best conference in soccer. Good environment for him to be in, and we really look forward to see what he can do at Michigan. Next, we've got a familiar name for college soccer fans, Luca Becerra, a striker who's going to Indiana. You might remember his brother Victor. Both of them are out of Chicago Fire, and both going to Indiana. Victor was a very good player at Indiana. I think he was definitely in contention for the Herman Trophy, the college soccer version of the Heisman. Earned a homegrown contract with Chicago. When I was talking about Victor earning that homegrown contract, I called him Luca by mistake. And if you're an Indiana fan, watch that. Like, And you're like, oh my god, he got his name wrong. Wait, he knows his brother? Like, weird thing there. Mistake that makes you seem smarter. I don't know. Hopefully it did. But for him as a player, I think he's an old school number 9. He's 6'2", does well in the air. Pretty mobile, but again, not fast, similar to Austin Brummett. Probably not the best technically, but again, old school player, really good finisher, good movement. I think he has good enough technically to have good hold up play. Just a classic number 9, can put the ball into the back of the net. Expecting him to do well at Indiana. And another familiar name, Matthias Johannes. Not related to Ethan, even though they're both from DC originally. Matthias stayed there. He played with Loudon a little bit. A good amount in the USL. He's a former youth international. I think he's a midfielder. He can play either the 6 or the 8. I'm thinking the 8. He's going to Kentucky University, and Kentucky's actually in the Sun Belt in college soccer. The Sun Belt is actually turning into a really good college soccer conference. They add Kentucky, South Carolina, Marshall, who just won a championship. West Virginia, UCF is going to join there soon. Weirdly, probably a Power 5 conference if we're going to talk about that. But he looks really, Matthias, he looks really good. Good athlete with a good first touch. And while he was playing with Loudon, like, he kind of looked like a bit of a cut above. Like, you see, he just kind of couldn't keep up with him. Like, an example I used was Gianluca Busio when he was playing in the Gold Cup with a team made up of MLS players, and you could kind of tell like Busio couldn't really unleash his top stuff because the other players just couldn't keep up with him technically. But it seemed a little bit like that. I was watching, like, he like plays this like thin line between being like a really fluid player and being out of control. Like, I'm leaning towards being fluid. Like, you watch him like kind of like a downhill runner. Like, he's really good. Like, I like him as a prospect. He does just about anything well. Good athleticism. Like, his defensive ability can be there with his athleticism. Technical ability, he keeps the ball on a string. A really good player. Like, he's a guy who kind of needs to put it all together, like, really develop everything. Kentucky could be a good place for him to do it. He's got a lot of game time at a high level. I think he's going to be fun to watch. Now, I figured we'd talk about goalkeepers. I wanted to make sure that I include at least 10 goalkeepers throughout this entire list, because goalkeepers are typically the best players that come out of college soccer. And first off, we got to talk about Seth Wilson. A goalkeeper is going to Akron, and he is very good. He comes from FC Dallas originally. He spent some time in Portugal, similar to other bounce backs I talked about. Didn't work out there. Pandemic did really affect him, and he's back in America now. He ended up with Dallas a little bit in their MLS Next Pro team, but he's behind Antonio Carrera, so fair that he's not playing, but he might be just as good as him. He's another former youth international, but Seth Wilson, 6'5". It shows. He controls his box very well. Great coming out for crosses, claiming balls put into the box. Like, he controls it very well. He's confident with the ball at his feet. We're going to get to a guy who's amazing with it, but he is still very good, and especially for a player his size, he has some great reactions. Looks like a top goalkeeper prospect. If I had to bet on any goalkeeper coming out of this class and doing really well, it'd definitely be Seth Wilson. He's the oldest player on the list. He's only a 2002 player, but again, spent some time trying to break into Europe, then came back to the MLS. Now he's in college. So you can see why he's the oldest player, but I don't think you'd really hold out against him. Pandemic happened, he'd bounce back, and he looks like a top player. Another goalkeeper to talk about is Cole Kolinek. He's going to Grand Canyon University. Got a good amount of players going to Grand Canyon as well. He's from Seattle, and he's similar to Seth Wilson. He's a little bit smaller. He's 6'1", but I think he still can manage his box very well. Again, go with the ball at his feet. He makes some really good reaction saves. And another really top goalkeeper. Seth Wilson was actually the last player I added to this list. I think he committed kind of late, and at least I found him kind of late. And Kolinek was my top goalkeeper for a while. I still think he's a really good goalkeeper. He's 2004, so a little bit younger than Wilson, and I think he'd be just as good. He looks like a really top player. And again, no youth caps because this goalkeeper class is elite. Like, he's behind Slonina, Brady, Carrera. Like, you can understand why he doesn't have youth caps, but very good player. I'm looking forward to seeing him play. Next, we have Luciano Natoli, who's going to UCF. He comes from Inter Miami's academy. They've been putting out some good players lately. And I have to credit USMNT National Prospects for putting me onto him like pretty directly. I don't think I'd find him if I didn't look over some of his lists. And Luciano's a player. He's a good goalkeeper, but probably not at the level of like Cole, Seth Wilson. He has some good reactions. He makes himself big while he's making saves, which he doesn't need to because he's 6'0", and like an Allen Iverson 6'0". Like, UCF lists him as like 5'8" right now, but I checked some other players. They have it wrong, I'm pretty sure. And he does kind of struggle with that. I don't think he's the best shot-stopping goalkeeper, but he's amazing with the ball at his feet. And when I say amazing, like probably the top American goalkeeper with the ball at his feet, period. Like, he can pick out passes very well, and he does need to develop the rest of his game. I think college soccer is a good place to do it. UCF, they're going to be moving to the Sun Belt soon. As I mentioned before, really good conference. And again, could be fun to watch. He looks like he could be a very good goalkeeper. He puts it all together, and definitely somebody to keep an eye on. Up next is Kamani Dade, a goalkeeper going to Loyola Marymount. That's the Loyola that's in Los Angeles, and that makes sense. He comes from the LA Galaxy Academy, and he was actually called into a USA U20 camp this year. So as a player, Kamani is... I really don't know. There's no footage on him. Nothing, no highlight tape. I couldn't find a game where he played. I looked just about everywhere. I could not find anything. So I'm like, okay, I'm kind of stumped with this guy, but he was called into the U20 camp. Like, he has to be pretty good, probably. I'm like, okay, I remember. 11 Yanks hosted David Kerr, and they had a breakdown of that very U20 camp. So I'm like, okay, let me go watch this video, see what David Kerr has to say on him. He knows this youth national team very well. So I go on, he starts talking about him, go through goalkeepers, and he gets my date, know nothing. He's just like, yeah, don't know anything about him. Like, oh, okay. It's like, okay, let me go try USMNT National Team Prospects. He has a very good Twitter account that keeps up with the USMNT National Team youth programs, and he did like a top 10 for every single academy. So I'm like, okay, maybe he'll be in there for the LA Galaxy Academy. I look, no, he's not in there, which that's not something that takes you out like LA Galaxy. Like, they haven't had many good homegrown players, but that's more because they don't integrate their team very well. They have a lot of talent there. So it's like, okay, well, he's not in there. Then I like go through, keep scrolling to the end of the list, and he puts out a thing where it's like, yeah, so these are the players that I've heard a bit about, but I haven't seen any footage on them, so I can't talk about them. And Kamani Dade's on that list. Which, first of all, like, props to them for, like, being honest and not trying to, like, BS anything. Like, these guys who are covering it, like, David Kerr, USMNT National Team Prospects, like, these guys are legit. Like, I'm just throwing that out there. But that's a problem for me, because I have no idea if this guy's a good player or not. Like, I'm looking at, like, his call-up, and he might have just been called in as a replacement for the last second. Like, there were some goalkeepers going through injuries. But if he wasn't, he impressed Mikey Varas. And it might have just been he performed very well once in front of him while he was coaching. But that means everything. Like, what is this list if it's not impressing one guy once? Like, and he was called up in an amazing goalkeeper group. Like, he was called up over some really talented players who could be going to Europe sooner rather than later. Some top world-level prospects. And if he deserves that, like, he's amazing. But I can't know. And by the way, they played some friendlies that were behind closed doors. Again, behind closed doors, so I can't tell. But they kept clean sheets against MLS clubs. He could have had a great game, but I can't know because there's no footage on him. I'm honestly not even sure if this guy exists. But he seems to be a really good player, but he might not be, and I have no idea. And I don't know. He could be really good. He might not be. Anyways, up next I want to talk about some club players. And by that I mean independent clubs, not associated with academies. And I want to do this because last year we had Isaiah Parker, who came out of club, I believe, FC United, and was probably the top American freshman in college soccer last year. So I want to talk about some players. I want to talk about 10 come from clubs, and we're already on goalkeepers. So let's start with Colin Mcneil. That's goalkeeper I'm going to talk about in this section of the video. He's going to be going to Harvard. He comes from Varder Academy in Michigan. He was actually listed as a club All-American by the United States soccer coaches. And he looks pretty good. Like 6'4", I mentioned. He has good reactions for his size, some good positioning as a player. He commands his box very well. Like, he uses his height to his advantage. And his distribution, like, it's kind of weird to talk about because with his feet, like, he's competent, but it's not like a strength. Like, it's below like a Wilson or Colin Mcneil, certainly not Natoli. But I wouldn't call his distribution bad because he's really good with throwing the ball. Like he could have been a quarterback. He's got some nice spin in there and everything. Like, he can create some attacks, like throwing the ball like really well. Like, it was noticeably a skill. But at 6'4", with some good reactions, could be a very good goalkeeper. Another player going to the Ivy League, and he's someone to keep an eye on. I think he'd be a very good player. Next, we got 3 players from Maryland to talk about. Up first, we have Miles Avery, who's going to Georgetown. He's a center back. He comes from Bethesda Academy. I think he spent some time at DC United. He's a former youth international. I mentioned the Club All-American list before. He's not only Club All-American, he was named the Club Player of the Year, and he looks really good. He's 6 feet tall, but I think good in the air. Like, he's one of those guys where 6 foot tall is big for him. Really good athlete, got enough speed to recover, and he was pretty competent playing out of the back. Like, he just looks like a really solid center back. I mentioned Georgetown before as a player where you can get a lot of time, even as a freshman, someone to look out for, and he was really, like, part of the reason why I want to do this club thing, because just a really solid player, someone to look out for. Next, we're staying with Bethesda United, another former DC United player, and for the next few players, have you ever heard this Jamie Carragher saying where he's talking about right backs, and he said, nobody wants to be a Gary Neville. Nobody kind of dreams of being a right back. I'm not sure how true that is anymore, but it's the case for these two players. Justin Rainey is a former winger who could very easily convert to a right back. I don't think he's actually listed as there for St. John's, the school he's going to, but I think right back's going to be the position he settles with. He looked pretty good as a winger. Like, you like his attacking skill. He has a really good first touch on him. He has good pace, good dribbling. He's 5'8", which is pretty small, but definitely manageable. But defensive ability, it's going to have to come. Like, he is very good attacking, but he has to put it all together defensively. But if he does, he could be a very good player, and it's going to be fun to watch in St. John's in the Big East. Next, Riley Berg. Right back going to North Carolina, kind of the opposite. He's from another Club All-American from Baltimore Armor, and former center back, converted to right back. Another player who's 6 foot tall, and he's got really good speed. And I mean, the game I found of him, like, it was kind of choppy. I think he made it look even faster, but I think he's still really good with his speed. Like, North Carolina made him do a race between him and the other fastest player on the team. He did come in second, but the fact that they had him do it, like, he's fast. They also recruited Tega Koba, the only player I talked about last year when I was doing this, who got a homegrown contract. So I feel good about his speed. As a player, pretty good left foot. He was playing left-footed center back when I was watching him play, and he was using it pretty well. Solid in build-up play, good 1v1 defender. He has the athleticism. But the opposite of Justin Rainey, the question is going to be, can he transition to a more offensive-minded right back? I'm not even sure if he's going to be playing there full-time, but in that video I was talking about his speed, they list him as a right back. So, again, it's kind of the reverse. Can he be a good Gary Neville? We'll have to find out, but he's going to be fun to watch. Really good prospects out of Maryland. Next, we're going to Ohio, where we've got two players to talk about, both from the same club. First up is Levi Stevens, center back / right back, another one of those players for the position's not really decided, and he's going to Akron. He comes from Internationals, which is a pretty good club in Ohio. He's formerly from both the Philadelphia Union, Columbus Crew. A lot of moving around for him. He did end up as a Club All-American while at Internationals, and he is a former youth international as well. So he's 5'11" and pretty good athlete, but he might end up transitioning to right back long term. He's not one of those guys who's like 5'11" but can make himself seem really big on the field. Like, he's might end up at right back. It's kind of tough to say, but good defensively. Similar to Burke, he's going to have to develop offensively. Does transition. If not, he could do a very good job at center back. Like, he was regarded really highly before his height became a bit of an issue. But something weird about him is he seems to be a lifelong fan of Akron. Like, even if he was really good, I think he would have gone there, which, I mean, I understand why. Like, they did win a national championship when he was younger. He's, like, from the area. Like, he's local there. But, like, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me that we got a guy who's just in love with the Akron University soccer. Like, it seems weird to me. But I think he could be a good player. He's pretty talented. Next, we got Stefan Dobrovich, another guy from Internationals. Might be a dual national panic. He's got a Serbian flag in his bio. I don't know. Maybe that's something. Another Club All-American player. He's 6'2", and for him, it was really tough to get footage on him, except Akron played some spring games, and he was like an early enrollee. He enrolled during the winter, so he could play for them in the spring. And he looked really good at the college level already, and that kind of forced my hand. Like, okay, well, he's already proved it. He's going to be pretty good. A good goal scorer, pretty decent athlete, like mobile as a striker. 6'2", if I didn't mention that already. Pretty good hold-up play. Again, not too much footage to go off of, but he did impress as a player, as like a young freshman. in the spring season, like I think he could be really good. And Akron's got a couple of good players, Stevens, Wilson as well. Definitely something to look out for. I forgot to mention with Wilson, I have another player from Akron I talked about last year, goalkeeper Mitch Butler, I believe, and that's going to be a really good battle to see who ends up being their number one goalkeeper. Both of them are really talented players, so that's something to keep an eye on. But for Stevens and Dobrovich, I think they're going to be pretty solid. Next is Takashi Sezaki, a left back who's going to be going to Stanford. He's from Pacific Northwest, though he's previously at Seattle Sounders. He's a former youth international, currently club All-American, 5'9", and as a player, he's a very good offensive-minded left back. I think the defensive ability will come given time. It's a good place to go to, Stanford, go to college, develop that defensive ability. But going forward, I do really like him. Good technically, knows the game, decent burst of speed, and going forward, very good. Defensive ability could develop a little bit, but I think it does, and he is someone to keep an eye on. Then we have Baron Dromer, a striker going to San Diego State. Continue that San Diego State class. He's from Solar. That's a club in Texas. He used to be at FC Dallas, but he left. Another player bounced back, went over to Europe with a program there, and there was a couple of players who went to that program. He's the only one from this who ended up making the list I scouted, and for a while, it's oh my god, none of these guys made it. Was this a scam or something? But no, it was just they got hit really hard by the pandemic. One of those players actually did end up sticking in Germany, but I think it did really just sideline his career for a little bit. But he did end up at Solar, did end up becoming Club All-American, and for him, very good pace, very good attacking instincts. He can find goals. Great poacher. Maybe he could play wing as well. I think he's got the pace for it, but for him, it's scoring goals, and the goal scoring was just too much of an upside to ignore, and I think he is going to be a pretty talented player. Next, we have Philly Velaputa, an attacking midfielder, like an 8 or a 10, going to Grand Canyon. He's coming out of Barcelona, Arizona. That program has seen a lot of really talented players come out of there recently. Philly, as a player, he's got some really good feet. He can dribble really well. He's got a couple of really nice moves. I think he's got some decent athleticism, good defensive work, and he can pick out some passes. I think something he needs to work on is I haven't really seen him excel in passing really well in tight spaces, though he does have some really good feet. He has some technical ability, but I would like to see that improve a little bit. I wouldn't call him on the technical level as someone like I mentioned with Keenan Hott earlier. He's a little bit behind that right now, but I think it could grow. And next, Kade Mcgrath, a winger who's going to Bucknell. He's from Real Jersey, and I have to say he's the only player who I was considering for the high school list, before the season started, who decided to focus solely on his club, decided to get a lot better, play at a high level. He's at Real Jersey, the place where the Aaronsons originally came from, and he's done pretty well. At Morristown High School, he was as far as you go, I think it was a sectional champion, but he got that was as far as they went in 2020 because it's short in the season. But at Real Jersey, he looks really good. He's a winger with some really good pace. I liked his end product. Pretty good dribbling, but he just looks like a very good winger. He's the type of player with a high ceiling. You're going to get a pretty good guy out of him, and he can continue to develop. He'd get a little bit better in the final third, work on his dribbling, and keep developing, becoming a good player. Kade Mcgrath looks like somebody who could be very strong. Next, we're going to be talking about some players from the USL, and this isn't like me talking about the club players where I kind of had to shoehorn them in because I want to talk about them. These are USL players who look like real top prospects. So the first one is Wyatt Borso. He's an attacker going to Notre Dame. Could play a wing or a striker. I feel like striker is going to be his better position, but he comes from Pittsburgh Riverhounds. He was a former youth international, and he's looked very good. He's already a contributor in the USL. He's got some really good hold-up play, strong in the air at 6'1". He looks like a really good player. Similar to some other strikers we talked about, not exactly pacey, but he moves around very well. I really liked how he's playing 1-2s really quickly, and he was keeping both men while he was playing. He can press, he can finish off chances combined, and he looks like a pro already. Wyatt Borso looks very good at Notre Dame. And another USL player going to Notre Dame is Sebastian Green, who's a left back. So he comes from the Northwood School in New York, which I was originally having him on the high school list, but as I was looking into it, they're basically an IGM, Montverde, that St. Mary's school up in Minnesota. I couldn't really count him as a high school team. He's been playing with Blackrock FC's youth team, a USL League 2 squad. I think Jack Harrison played there, so a good amount of prestige there. He's actually a dual national player, but he does not really have. Nobody's really battling for him yet. 5'9", left-footed player. I feel like he could be a really good left back. His right foot isn't bad though. He is a very good technical player. I thought he was doing very well going forward. He's got the good pace for it. Defensively, I feel like he is going to have to grow. Seems like he kind of transitioned to left back somewhat recently, but I think he can do the job very well, and he looks like a top player. Notre Dame's got two good guys from the USL. Up next, we got Jose Maria Barria, a midfielder going to Pacific University. He comes from Sacramento Republic, so hopefully he can follow that Eric Centano. Sacramento Republic, 1 year Pacific, Generation D's contract. That'd be the best for him. He's a 5'9" player, but good box-to-box midfielder. He's got some good speed, goes heavy into challenges. He looks like a really good player. When I was watching him, he didn't have a highlight tape, so I had to throw some games for him. His interactions looked like they came out of a highlight tape. Very good in tight spaces, can hit a good pass. He actually got a red card in that game I watched. He goes hard into challenges. Something that, again, I like the edge, but is somebody he's going to have to work on. But got enough speed, good athleticism. A lot of room to grow, but looks like a very top player. Pacific's got a very strong player again, another Sacramento player. Then we got Ansu Kenna, a winger going to Grand Canyon. The third of four 2005 players are going to be talking about. He actually appeared in the USL Championship game at 14. I'm pretty sure it was a publicity stunt, but man, that's still impressive. On the field, he is fast, game-breaking speed. Type of fast that you take notice of. If you've ever watched #United's Academy series, the season 2 first episode, when Josh Yasude was playing in that, that's the comparison. He's just noticeably extremely fast. Aside from that, I think he's got some good dribbling. I liked his pressing ability. He's got a good IQ on the field, but he is still a very raw player. He's a 2005, and he's a late 2005. He has to be smart because he graduated really early. He's originally from Liberia as well, so maybe dual international stuff, but honestly, just his speed alone is worth watching. A very good player out of Grand Canyon to keep an eye on. Going to be finishing off the 2005s with Sam Williams, a midfielder going to North Carolina. He's out of the New York Red Bulls Academy. He's appeared in some USL Championship games, and he looks like a really solid player. 5'10", strong left foot, but he's right-footed, a good athlete. I like his defensive instincts. Gets into tackles really well. He can play quickly. He's a very good technical player. He's very good in the air as well. He's only 5'10", but he can get up and win balls in the midfield. Has it technically, really good. All around just a solid player. You could see having a pro career. I will say he's a bit like Daniel Edelman, also out of the New York Red Bulls Academy, where I haven't really seen, truly excel at any area. He's kind of like a jack of all trades, and I think his creativity could be a little bit better. He's more of a just defensive-minded midfielder now, but, as a 2005 to be doing what he's doing, he looks very promising. Could be a very good box-to-box midfielder or a 6 in the future. Next is Cooper Flax, another defensive midfielder going to Wake Forest. He's out of NYCFC, former youth international as well, and he looks like a very good player. Another guy very good on the ball, very good technically, good at passing, and can protect the back line. Really good at linking up play from the defense into the midfield. Building final third wasn't that great, but I don't think that's that important. His athleticism could be a bit better, but again, he gets around the field pretty well. He does his job. I really liked his ability in close control. The only issue with him really was I've heard some rumblings that he's maturity was an issue, but at the same time he was a captain at just about every level for NYCFC's youth teams, and he was another early enrollee at Wake Forest, and he already made academic honor roll, so I'm going to take those as rumors. I think he's going to be a really good player and definitely someone to watch. And another defensive midfielder is David Bacuzzo, who's going to be going to Louisville. He comes from Orlando. He had some MLS Next appearances under him, and he was just really solid. You watched his film, and he popped off the screen, very mobile, can get around well, good passer, nice first touch, good combination play. Nothing truly flashy about him, but just a really solid player. You could see him having a good pro career. Louisville's going to be fun to watch. He's the only player from Louisville this year, but last year there were 3 freshmen. They were starting a lot of freshmen last season. Dante Huckabee was one. He's a really good player and definitely someone to keep an eye on. And Louisville's going to be fun to watch. Dave Bacuzo, someone. Next, we're going back to San Jose for two really good players. I would have mentioned them earlier, but they are pretty heavy dual internationals, though they are too talented to not mention. First is Diego Otoya, a striker going to UC Irvine. He's got some MLS Next games under him. He scored a couple goals in there. But he's a Peru youth international. I think if we go after him, we'll be able to get him, but he looks very good. 6'2", target man, good hold-up play, likes his athleticism, he can finish well. Like, just another old-school striker, looks really solid, someone to look out for, and just type of player that we need in this system. Like, striker is a bit of an issue. If, like, one of these many strikers that I've talked about are able to break through, like, he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. And then we got Alan Juarez. Another attacking midfielder, could be an 8 or a 10. He's going to California, Cal Berkeley. He's a Guatemala youth international. You might have seen him as he qualified for the U20 World Cup with Guatemala. Like, well, he's already provisionally cap-tied. Like, he was doing so well. I just, okay, I have to include him, even if it is a pretty big risk. I'm kind of expecting him to commit to Guatemala, but I think it's worth talking about. He can pick out a pass. He's pretty quick. Very good technical ability. Like, I think, like, probably going to be playing in the 8. Like, maybe as a 10, though. Like, it could go either way. I think he does need to develop his position, really. Like, see if he can add those goals to his game from the 10. Really help with build-up from a deeper midfield position. But he's very good technically and someone to keep an eye on. Like, I can't believe San Jose are letting all 4 of these players go to college. But looks like very good prospects there. Another dual international I'll talk about is John Carlos Cortez. He's going to be going to UCLA. He's from the New York Red Bull. He's former U.S. Youth International, also a Peru Youth International. He got some minutes in the USL Championship, some pro time. But while he was there, a bit of an issue is his position. It's kind of undecided if he's a left back or a center back. He's 6 foot tall, so he could be good enough to be a center back, but it's kind of tough to say. I do like his dribbling as a left back. Like, he can hit a long ball pretty well as well. Like, good first touch. He's a pretty strong player. He's got some good pace. I do think, like, his defense is, he could work on his defending a little bit. He could work on his crossing a little bit. Like, it's kind of tough. He's not really a complete player at either position yet. So it's just go to UCLA, stick to one position, and do very well there. He's got to find that position. Hopefully he commits to USA. If not, well, good luck to him at Peru. We got a couple Peru dual internationals. Didn't notice that until now. But hopefully find a position, become a really good player. 2 players who do have a position are 2 guys from Columbus, same positions, a left back and a center back. First, Alec Kennison, who's a left back going to Wake Forest. He's from Columbus. He spent some time in Europe. I think it was a trial at Middlesbrough. Former youth international and pretty good player. He's 5'9". I thought he had a really good first touch and dribbling from what I've seen. Pretty good end product. He used to play as an attacking right winger with his left foot, like inverted. Good athleticism. I think his defensive abilities do need to grow, but he's a winger who just converted. Like, that's going to come. I think using a year in college, that's going to be good for him. Wake Forest, another good player going there, and he's going to be pretty solid. Another Columbus Crew player is Nolan Miller, center back going to Michigan with Nicholas Dossman, 2 center backs going there. He's had a little bit of time in MLS Next, and as a defender, like, I really liked what I saw from him. He's a pretty strong player, pretty decent pace, pretty good technical ability. Like, I wouldn't put him at, like, the level that Cortez has, but he's really good in his position. Like, he can make some good passes. He's not a slow player at all. Like, I think he's got enough that he's somebody you can really take note of. I think he's going to be a good player and definitely someone to keep an eye on. Now, 3 center backs to run through. We got Bryce Swinehart, who's going to be going to Liberty. He comes from Charlotte's Academy, and he's a pretty good defender. From what I see, he really reads the game well. Also, passing, 1v1 defending are pretty good, but, like, just knowing the game, I think that's definitely the best part. Also, pretty good in the air. Something interesting about him is, like, the footage I really found of him was kind of like a blog of people going to his game, and, like, the people while they were watching, like, you could tell, like, they're like, oh, this guy's good, while they're watching a Swinehart play. So, definitely something to keep an eye on. I think he's going to be a very talented player. Next, we got Mitch Ferguson, center back going to Notre Dame. He comes from Portland's Academy. Getting out of Portland's definitely a good idea. Got some time in the MLS Next, former youth international. He actually scored the goal of the season for MLS Next, which shouldn't have put him over the top for me, but it definitely helped. He's 6'4", really good in the air, good on the ball as shown by his goal. He's a little bit slower than average, but he's 6'4". You can compensate for that. And I think he does have some really good parts to the game. Definitely something to keep an eye on. I feel like Notre Dame recruits some really good players. Then last center back I want to talk about is Owen Walls. He's going to Virginia. He comes from DC United. He's got a couple of USL Championship appearances under his belt. And he's just a really decent all-around player. 6'2", good size, solid defender. Not like a great athlete, but he's good. Solid 1v1. Not like Samuel Jones, where he's really good. Good on the ball. Not like a leader or anything, but like, again, just really solid all around. Like, if any one of those abilities really takes off, he's got the rest of it to cover. And I think he's going to be a very good player. Definitely someone to keep an eye on. Getting close to the end here. Right now we got Jack Wagner, who's a midfielder, probably playing a 6, going to Indiana. He comes from St. Louis City, the new MLS club. There's still MLS Next, where he has played a bit for them. I've heard rumors that he could be their first homegrown player, so I won't include him for that. I still think he is developing a little bit. You can see some talent, though. Pretty good with both of his feet. Can pick out some good passes. Can keep the ball close. I think he could do a little bit better with dealing with pressure, something to improve at while he's at Indiana. Though I do like his athleticism, but he seems like a pretty solid player. I think he probably at the right spot on this list, but looks like somebody who could definitely turn into a good pro player. Next, we have Colin. He goes by Cam Wilkerson, a defensive-minded midfielder or a box-to-box guy going to UCLA. Comes from Colorado, played some in the USL Championship, and I'll be honest, I really couldn't find footage on this guy. It's not like Kamani Dade. I have seen, actual reports on him, but just personally couldn't find the footage that I would feel comfortable with. And if there was any, it was such bad quality. It's kind of similar to Ansu Kenna, but thankfully he was a wing, so he's at least close to one of the side for part of it. But I couldn't find the footage that I feel comfortable with really rating him. But from what I've seen, or what I've heard, I should say, a good box-to-box player, good athleticism, pretty good technique. His coach says he knows the game pretty well, but that could just be his coach saying it. Is a player who's rated very highly, but again, just don't have the footage on him, but he seems to be too good for me to leave off. Someone to watch at UCLA. I'll definitely be watching him so I can see how good he is. The last two Academy players I want to talk about, and I feel like I take a slight risk with them. I'm not positive about them, but I like the upside too much for me to ignore. And that first one is Jason Panadath. You might have heard of his brother Josh. He's a very promising young player who's kind of in between clubs. He recently ended up at AZ. He's somebody who has really good technical ability. They had a very good video about him going to Ajax before. But I'm talking about his little brother right now. And similar to Josh, he's got some really good technical ability. Very good with the ball at his feet. That's all I really know about him. Very limited footage, but the talent there, I think, was enough. He's going to be going to Lehigh, someone to keep an eye on. Maybe try to watch 1 or 2 games of him. Again, he hasn't played in a very long time. Pandemic did hurt him as well, but I think someone to keep an eye on because he could be a very good player. And then one last player to talk about from the Academy, and remember earlier when I was talking about the Philadelphia Union, and I said they didn't have any highlight tapes for them. So as I was watching them, you had to watch full games if you want to see Sam Jones, Jackson Gilman, Jack Jasinski. While I was watching those full games, one player stood out and kept standing out. A kid with bleach blonde hair, Ian Abbey. And there's a reason why you haven't heard of him. He's an attacking midfielder in the Philadelphia Union Academy. He was behind Quinn Sullivan, and he was behind Paxton Aronson and Jack McGlynn. You can understand why he wasn't playing much. But he's going to get a chance at Rutgers, and I feel like he could be a very good player. He's got a great dribbling ability, really good technically. He might do better as a winger. Philadelphia doesn't play with wingers in their system. He can go at players directly, take them on off the dribble, and he's very talented. He's got some quickness to him. He kind of plays like a street player in both good and bad ways. Work rate is a bit of a question, and this might just be my Philly bias putting him in there, but it worked last year with Kaden Stafford. He was a top player in the ACC, so I'm going to put my faith in Ian Abbey. I've really liked what I saw from him, and another Philadelphia Union player to add. And I think he's going to be really good. And yeah, that's it with the Academy players I want to talk about. So next, on to high school guys. So for high school players, I understand they're not at the level of the Academy guys, but we have some really good players to talk about. And there have been some high school guys who have broken through to the U.S. national team. Daryl DK, Matt Turner are some, for example. And there are a lot of good players to talk about. So just getting into it. First, we have Palmer Alt, a midfielder or forward. He's going to Butler University. He's out of Noblesville in Indiana, which is in the Indianapolis area. Like, I'm just going to say the general thing in case anybody wants to, like, claim the school or whatever. But he was one of the few players in the nation to get, like, basically every honor possible. He was Indiana Gatorade Player of the Year, Indiana U.S. Soccer Coaches Player of the Year, made the Fall All-American team, and was part of the Fall All-American game. There was only one Fall All-American game, so when I get to California players, like, they're not going to be part of that. But, as part of that, he also won the Indiana Class 3A championship. Really strong Noblesville team. Like, a lot of their guys are going to college. Palmer's the only guy I'm going to be talking about, but in addition to that, he's actually played with the USL Academy. He's the champion of the USL Academy team. He was playing up a group, scored a goal in the final, 2 goals assists, and an assist in 3 games. And he actually played a bit for the Indy 11 USL full-strength team. Like, he's a professional player already. And as a player, like, I really like this guy. He's 5'11". He's got some pretty good size. Fast, good in the final third, like, really good dribbler, like, gets at players. Like, he's got some really good technical ability. Like, I think he's one of those guys who has, like, it technically, and, like, if I don't say that about a player in the high school section, like, they probably don't, but, like, he has it, like, plays really quickly, like, good movement, decent left foot, like, good work rate, he can really press. Like, he's been playing a bit of a forward, but I think he's got defense in him as well. Like, he looks like a great player to every accolade in high school possible. Like, broke to a USL team. Like, he might have been in the academy section of the video as well. Looks like a top player. Next, we got some guys who, I'll be honest, like, I, like, looked into this a bit last year, and, like, you could see that some players were going to be on this. So, last year, there were a lot of players here from Ohio. There were a lot of All-Americans there. There are this year as well. So, like, I was kind of, like, looking through, and I was like, oh, okay, I wonder who's it going to be. Like, I got a guy going to Georgetown, dude who won a title. Like, somebody who had been an All-American for, like, 3 years. I'm like, okay, it's going to be one of them. Then I, like, get to the Gatorade Player of the Year for Ohio, and it's Luciano Pachota, a junior. Like, he is a standout player. He's from St. Ignatius. He's going to Ohio State. Midfielder. Man, St. Ignatius, like, I had somebody in it last year. I'm going to have at least 2 in next year if I do this again. Yeah, he had a little bit of an injury this year, so the Gatorade Player of the Year went to his teammate, who I'm going to be talking about next year, but he was still the national U.S. Soccer Coaches Player of the Year, Fall American Team, Fall American Game, Ohio Division I champion, just the national champion altogether for the fall. And I was kind of, like, wondering, like, oh, does he have anything going on outside? Like, because I hadn't seen anything like all Scout, like the USL thing. Like, they were going to get to a lot of players later. So I hadn't seen anything for a while. Then it's like, oh, he was another one of those futsal national players. And it's like, yep, that's on brand because he has it technically, can really find a pass, has good speed, like, good dribbling, good work rate. Like, he is an amazing technical player. Some athletic limitations and, like, injury did hurt, but man, he looks really talented. It's going to be fun to watch because he just has it technically. Next, we got another player who I wanted to talk about. It's Jackson Neighbors. He's a striker who's going to Davidson from Indian Springs, Alabama. And if you want to go down a rabbit hole, look up Alabama private schools because there's some, like, weird stuff going on there. Actually didn't have many accolades this year. He has a teammate who's, like, really good as well, who's going to be and he's going to be training with the Birmingham Legion in USL. So, like, they kind of, like, took away from each other in their votes. But last season, like, Alabama Gatorade Player of the Year, U.S. Soccer Player of the Year, was an All-American in the winter and spring. As I mentioned before, no winter and spring All-American game. But champion in Alabama, they're 4-5A, 2 years running. And, yeah, he's just a really good player, like, good finisher, like, really good dribbler. Like, when you get to this level of, like, play, you can see guys who, like, just kind of dribble the field, have some really good moments, can hit a pass really well. I like his hold-up play. And the thing about him is, like, he'd probably be on this list no matter what. Like, he was scoring some really good goals. He is 6'8". 6'8". That is huge. Like, the size that he has, like, that is game breaking. Like, I would have thrown him on the academy thing just because there is potential to do something there. And, like, he moves well. He's, like, a fluid player. He doesn't look like somebody who just hit a growth spurt. Like, he looks like a top player. He's a good finisher, good hold of play, really good in the air. Like, scores a lot of header goals. Something about him, like, for some reason, he was playing, like, left back for a good portion of time. Like, one, he's right-footed. He has a good left, but he's right-footed. And he's 6'8". He would have been at least 6'4" then. Like, who put him at left back? Like, what? But with his height, and he's a really good player outside of that, but with the height, like, keep an eye on Jackson Neighbors. He could be something. So next guy I want to talk about is, well, I should say this, like, real quick. Like, when you're going through this list, like, state players of the years are kind of like the most, divisive, like, hot and cold. You gotta get someone really good or, one of the worst players because, like, if you're a standout player from a state that's not the best, like, you're just going to be the best even if, like, you probably shouldn't be. It's like, you got through, like, a couple of that. So when I got to West Virginia, I wasn't that excited. But Bubby Towns, attacker who's going to Radford, like, he stands out. He's from Fairmont. He's another one of those Pittsburgh Riverhounds players I was talking about earlier. Won a state championship previously. West Virginia U.S. Soccer Coaches Player of the Year. Not Gatorade, not an All-American, but you watch him and there is something there. He's a left-footed player. I love having left-footed attackers. Like 5'11", good size, like really good hold-up play, good feet, like pretty good speed. He presses. Like, he kind of like Ian Abbey, like mentioned earlier. He plays like a street baller. Like, the flair that he plays with is, like, amazing. Like, I think he has it technically as well. Like, he's got amazing technical ability. He can pull stuff out of his hat. Like, it is, like, I was surprised that Fairmont, West Virginia produced this player. Just a really talented guy, someone to take note of. Next, going to California for two players. We got Michael Sherlock, a midfielder going to West Virginia. He's from Torrey Pines. It's in the San Diego area. I think Sean White went to that school. Southern California Division II champion. Former U.S. Youth International at the U14 level. He's another one of those guys who's a club All-American. I think he just played his senior year. He didn't really have to. You're going to get a couple of guys who just played their senior year to, have fun. But as a 6, I was really impressed by him. Looks good defensively, can hit a pass. I thought he's another guy. He has it technically, just really special there. And he's just everything you want. Good athleticism, good defensive ability, can connect play with his passing. Like, he could be a 6, could be a box-to-box midfielder. Like, really solid player. Washington's got a good player. Next, we got Eddie Villeda, a midfielder or a forward who's going to UC Santa Barbara. He's from Servite in California, which is in Los Angeles area-ish. California Gatorade Player of the Year, California U.S. Soccer Player of the Year, All-American, won the California Division I championship. Like, everything you could really want out of a player. Like, he did it. Like Paul Merle, perfect high school career. A former U.S. Youth International again. He was a ECNL All-American, which different club division you can play in, and just everything you really want. Like, good with his feet, can hit him good with his feet, like good left foot as well. Like 5'10", that's pretty good size. Good first touch, really good attacking instincts. Like, I think he's a really nice dribbler, got some good speed, like work rate, really good at set pieces. Like, he's been playing at 10. I think he's got enough athleticism and bite defensively to be an 8. Like, a really talented player who is going to be someone to keep an eye on. Next, we got Luke Schaefer, a striker going to Cal Poly. He's from Hamilton, Arizona, Phoenix-ish area. Arizona Gatorade Player of the Year. He's made a USL appearance with Phoenix Rising, and it looks like a top class player. Very mobile striker, especially because he's 6'1", like serious speed, good eye for goal, like really good movement. I like his pressing, like good dribbling. Like, he's not really a more technical player, but man, he can really get in behind defenses. He could be a really strong player. A lot of good parts to his game, and Probably a lot more with his movement, but than a hold-up play. But strikers can do well with that, like that, and Luke Schaefer's something to keep an eye on. And we got Carson Gibbs, kind of like a winger or a midfielder, going to St. Louis University from Fort Zumwalt South in Missouri, St. Louis area, fall All-American team, led squad to a Missouri Class 3 title. Didn't get any accolades beyond that because was carrying injuries, didn't have a chance to compete for the Missouri Gatorade Player of the Year. He's been in St. Louis City FC's MLS Next squad, and I think he's been standing out more than Jack Wagner, who I talked about in the academy thing. He's 5'10", really good player, quick, good movement, a lot of good creativity. I like his finishing, dribbling. He impressed me very well. Like, he's probably going to be a good player. Like, he was with that St. Louis City FC squad. They, like, won a game in MLS Next Pro against the Colorado Rapids team that were just, like, throwing their first teamers in there. Like, he started a game like that. Like, he's already at a pro level. Honestly, I could see him getting a homegrown contract with St. Louis. Like, it's possible, and someone to really keep an eye on. Next, we got Sebastian Tiss, midfielder going to Lafayette. He's from Conestoga in Philadelphia area, plays in the Central League, objectively the best league in Pennsylvania. That's the team where Chris Donovan, a Philadelphia Union striker, is from. So the Conestoga to smaller Pennsylvania school to the MLS pipeline does exist. He's Pennsylvania Gatorade and USC Player of the Year, part of the Fall All-American team, and Pennsylvania Class 4A champion. Like, looks like a really good player. 6 foot tall. He probably could switch to a defender in the future, but he's midfielder right now. I really liked his first touch. He's a big threat on set pieces. You pick out a pass, he's like pretty quick. Like, he's able to get stuck in, has the height and athleticism to be like a good box-to-box 6, maybe even a center back. Really good feet. Like, I haven't seen him like really excel like with that has it technically, but I think he might be able to get there. Like, the technical ability is there. I just like his speed of play is like a little bit slower. I think he might be able to pick that up though. So especially to like maybe consider that, but he's going to be really good at Lafayette. And then last player in like this top guys out of high school is Henry Richter, a center back going to Northwestern, the last guy going to Northwestern. And you might have noticed that he's the first defender I've been talking about in the high school list. And that is for a reason. When you're playing at high school, it's only like such a high level. So if you have a really good player, you're probably going to be playing either in the midfield or up top. Like, there are a good amount of guys who I think could play defenders who are just up top. Like Josh Jones, he started for Louisville last year. He was playing in high school as a midfielder, even though he's a center back starting for Louisville in the ACC on a really good team. Like, Richter, though, he was good enough to really make this list. He's from Milton. It's a private school in like the Boston area, another school that I've talked about before, or players from there I've talked about before. 6 feet tall, very good on the ball, good in the air, like, gets tackles well. Like, he's got like a really good build, like, kind of remind me of like Aaron Wabasak, like, really good to get into tackles. Quick. I thought he was as good as on the ball that you can be as a center back. Like, I think he's got it technically, like, a really good player. He's from New England's academy, like, solid left foot. Like, he's listed as 6 feet tall. He kind of looked taller. Like, the only thing is, like, I'd like to see him add a bit of muscle, but I really want to see him and Nigel Prince together at Northwestern. He's also part of the Fall All-American game. I should explain that. Like, I feel like the Fall All-American team is like, like how you played during the season. The Fall All-American game is a little bit before. It's named before the season ends, so it's like kind of off of like really good reputations of players. And he made off reputation. He's from the New England Academy before. And I thought he was somebody who's really strong and looks like a top player. Next, I want to talk about some guys who are really good players who played in high school that probably didn't like have that standout high school career, but were still really good. So, like, guys who did well from outside of high school who just happened to play, and I could fit them in here without having to get them in the academy side. So, first off, we got Andy Solons, striker going to Virginia. He's from the Atlanta United Academy. If you really follow like the youth nationals scene, you're probably surprised that I didn't have him in the academy side. Well, it's because he played 1 year of high school with Marietta. in Georgia, obviously in the Atlanta area. That was just a surprise he did it. It was kind of unremarkable, but right after the season ends, he goes right back to the USL Championship, scores some goals. Top class player, would have been in the academy side. He's 6'2", left-footed, very good in the air, good finisher. I really liked his movement. He's pretty athletic. I liked his hold-up play. Has everything you'd want in a striker. Kind of like how I was going with the Luca Bezerra, Wyatt Borsos of the world. Just looks like another top, really good striker who's going to be going to Virginia. Got a lot of players going to Virginia. Next is Elijah Gozo. Forward, could either be a striker or a wing, going to Utah Valley. And Utah Valley is interesting because they have Kyle Beckerman as their manager now. So they're getting a lot of really good Real Salt Lake prospects, including Abel Mendoza. I actually talked about him as an honorable mention last year because he seemed really good. He seemed to be committed to Army, but he wasn't on their roster. So then I kind of mentioned him as an honorable mention, and now he's going to Utah Valley. So I don't know if he would be a freshman, so I don't want to include him on this, but he would be. Abel Mendoza looks like a really top player. But back to Elijah Gozo from Real Salt Lake, like I mentioned, he's playing at Westlake, and you might have heard of his little brother Xavier, who's a really talented youth national team player in his own right. But Elijah, very good, very fast left-footed player, very good movement, good finishing, good dribbling, pretty good crossing him as well. Kind of like a Schaefer, a dynamic attacker you could to do well, and I think he's going to be pretty good at Utah Valley. Utah Valley is going to be a fun watch this year. And actually staying in Utah, next up is Tyson Nguyen, midfielder. He can also play defender, but I think he sticks at midfielder. He's going to Utah Tech, which is formerly Dixie State. They're changing their name to Utah Tech. It's oh my God, there's so many schools in Utah now. But no, it's just they changed their name. From the Portland Academy, he decided to switch up and play with Clackamas, his high school. He's also part of the National League Team of the Year with United PDX. Again, getting out of Portland's probably the right idea. As a player, he's 5'7", but he still tackles pretty hard. He's been able to play as a defender for a reason. Very good passer, good defensive instincts. Really good in tight space. He has it technically. I really liked his first touch. He played his one-touch passes really well. I think he looks like a really good player. Another smaller, very good center midfielder, but he's going to be fun to watch. Then we got Damien Segura, a midfielder going to Drake. He was out of Atlanta United. He's been playing with NTH NASA, ECNL All-American, and he guys from North Gwinnett, playing in Atlanta area, obviously. 5'8". He's got a good left-footed player. I feel like he really gets himself space to shoot very well. He's got a good long shot, first touch, really good, has it technically again. Some athletic limitations, I think. He was going through a couple of injuries, so maybe if he gets through that, you can get back to his top form, but Damien Segura is somebody who looks really good, and maybe he'd be getting through at Atlanta if it wasn't for those injuries. Then another player who dropped down a little bit, we got Owen Zornick, center back going to SMU, formerly of the LA Galaxy, which understandable why he got out of there, Jalen Neal and Marcus Cransford in front of him, but still a club All-American, a couple of those guys I mentioned earlier. He's from a Patagoras Academy. He's 6'4", very good in the air. He can pick out a pass. He's pretty confident on the ball. I feel like he deals with pressure pretty well. I liked his instincts in 1v1 defending. Kind of something he could do was go into challenges a little bit harder. He kind of went in pretty soft, maybe improved his left foot as well. And athleticism is only so good, but similar to Mitch Ferguson, when you're 6'4" and you're that big, you can get by without it. Owen Zornick, I think he'll be pretty promising. Next, another center back. We got Alex Barnett, who's going to North Florida. He's from PK Yonge, which is in Gainesville area. Not sure I pronounced that right. ECNL All-American with Florida Elite. He also played a wide receiver and kicker on the football team. Saw that when I was looking up his highlights. 6'1" player, good athlete. Obviously, he's playing football that much. You could tell he's a smart player. He knows the game very well. Good in the air, not bad on the ball, but not a strength, but not bad at all. Physical, good 1v1 defender. Another guy in kind of the Miles Robinson archetype defenders, but not a liability on the ball. Gifted athletic, solid defender, and you can see room for improvement. He's going to be someone to watch develop at North Florida. Next, we got Andre Inselico, a forward, which could be a wing, could be a striker, going to Fordham. From West Hampton Beach in New York, Long Island area. Played for Slammers, where he's part of the National League Team of the Season. And 6'4", very good in the air, like good finisher, pretty good with both feet. He's kind of another guy who's like mobile up top. I liked his flair that he had, like pretty creative player. He makes space for himself to shoot very well. Like, he can get the ball, get a little bit of touch ahead, get a shot off from a pretty tight space. Pretty good hold-up play. Could be a little bit better technically. Like, he seems more like a Luke Schaefer type, like slashing number 9. But somebody who I do really like. He looked pretty good. Then we got Alex Miller. Comes from going to Quinnipiac. I think I butchered that name. From Leominster in Massachusetts. He's part of the ECNL National Select Game. He's from FC Stars. He's a player, pretty small, 5'7" with good feet, but confident on the ball. He can make one-touch passes. I think he might have it technically. He has a lot of flair, like athleticism and end product, like might be a little bit less, but he's somebody who's pretty fun to watch. Like, he's confident on the ball. You can see he like knows the game very well, and could be somebody interesting. Could see how he develops. Next, we got Thomas Miller. He goes by Jackson, which took me a little bit to find because all of his highlights are under Jackson Miller, but like the awards given to him are Thomas Miller, so that's something. He's a midfielder going to Cal Poly. He's from Patrick Henry High School in California. He was a club All-American with Albion FC, and I should just spoil the caveat right now. He is currently injured, did his ACL, so I don't know how much he's going to recover, but he was a good player. 6 foot tall, plays with a good bit of flair as well. He wasn't really that fast, but he had like a decent burst of speed. Pretty good work rate, good in the air, could come in on set pieces, and find the pass. Noticed the game pretty well. Could develop a bit technically, but I feel like he was somebody who was pretty solid. And last player from like outside of high school that I want to talk about, like high school players outside of high school, is Sammy Colby, a midfielder going to Charlotte University. Played with Carmel Christian in North Carolina, and he was part of Charlotte FC's team in their academy, and he also played with the U.S. He's a former U.S. Youth International, and he played with a Bayern Munich World team, where Bayern Munich selected a couple players from around the world to do these joint training sessions, and like that's a very interesting background. Former like MLS like player. Did some things with Bayern Munich, former youth international. Now, from what I could see, he was kind of like he didn't really stand out, but that was at an academy level, like playing at some really good clubs. I thought he had pretty good finisher, but just a solid midfielder all around, and someone I definitely want to talk about because he could be pretty good. Like, that's such a good resume. That's definitely something to keep note of. You may have noticed I had no goalkeepers in the part about players from outside of high school who stood out as high school players. And that's because the top high school players who were honored are really good at outside the game as well. Starting out things off, we got Ryan Friedberg, a goalkeeper going to Cornell. He's from Westfield in New Jersey, North Jersey, I guess. And he's part of the Fall American team, was part of the ECNL National Select Game. Very good player. He's 6'3". He's got some very good reactions, especially for his size. Pretty decent with his feet, good in the air, claiming stuff coming out of his box. Like, he seems the most pro-ready player out of all the high school goalkeepers. Smart guy going to Cornell, obviously, and seems like a really talented prospect, someone to definitely keep your eye on. Next, we got longest name on this list, Rafael Ponce de Leon, a goalkeeper going to Villanova. He's from Pennington, a school in New Jersey, where his team didn't win the title. They came up short due to St. Benedict's team with Ransford John, who's going to be a player hopefully we'll be able to talk about in 2 years. God, that's weird to think about. He was in the Fall All-American Game. He was a standout at PDA, Premier Development Academy, where he had a really good run in the MLS Next U17, I believe, season a couple years ago. 6'3" goalkeeper, really athletic and a good shot stopper. His feet are fine, not like a strength or anything, but not a liability. I think he could develop a bit more in the air, especially at his size with his athleticism. He could be a bit better there, but I think he will, and he looks like a really good prospect. Villanova's got a good player. I'm from Philadelphia. It's good to see him. And, yeah. Next, we got Micah Seeger, goalkeeper going to Maryland. He's from Lackey High School. And guy who that's in Maryland, D.C. area. He's in the Fall All-American game, and he's a former U.S. Youth International. He's 6'2". He's just really good at making saves. He can make some really good reaction ones. I think he could develop a lot more as a player. Like, distribution, not exactly a strength. Could be a bit better in the air, but Maryland's a good place to develop goalkeepers. Stefan. So I think he's definitely something to keep an eye on. He could be very good. Then we got Zach Glesias, goalkeeper going to Virginia Tech. He's out of Avon Lake in Ohio. Another guy who's in the Fall All-American game. He's only 6 foot tall, but like he has hops. Like it doesn't really show. He can really move around. So like he's got some talent as a shot stopper, but like a ton of room for improvement. Like he's like I haven't gone too deep in it, but he looks like a guy who was just a really good athlete. They stuck him in goal, and he's been getting by off like natural talent. Like it's good to go to Virginia Tech. They've got a top goalkeeper in Ben Martino ahead of him, so I think him having time to work on his game, get the fundamentals down, will be really big. Like, man, he's somebody he like puts his body on the line. Like he'll make some like violent saves, but good at winning the ball in the air. Like he will put his body on the line, and looks really good. Distribution just sort of not a strength, but like again, maybe could develop, and someone to keep your eye on. Last goalkeeper I want to talk about is Ryan Thompson, who's going to Tulsa. He's from Rockhurst in Maryland. Fall All-American game. He was actually a Missouri Class 4 champion, got a state title. In a National League playoff, he got a Golden Glove. He's 6'1", probably the best with his feet out of all the high school goalkeepers. Solid shot stopper, decent in the air, like pretty like well-rounded goalkeeper. Like I'm a little bit worried that he might have like already maxed out his talent, but he's going to have some time to develop. He's behind a Spanish goalkeeper, Alex Lopez, at Tulsa, who is very good. But Ryan Thompson definitely has some, could develop, and I think he's a very well-rounded goalkeeper, like I said. Someone to keep your eye on again. Then I'd be remiss to not mention his teammate, Ryder Barrett, a center back going to Drake, also from Rockhurst, which means he was a champion as well. Missouri Gatorade Player of the Year, Missouri United States Soccer Coaches Player of the Year, made the Fall American Team and Fall American Game. Like, basically the only other, one of the few players to like basically get everything they could as a high school player. Like, he's 6'1", imposing in the air. When he's given time, he can pick out a pass, position himself really well, controls his back line. Not elite speed, but can get around pretty well. He's fine right now, but he will need to get stronger as he plays. But again, young player, it'll happen. Like, very brave in challenges, pretty solid technically, and just a solid center back. We'll have to see how that transitions to the next level, but I think he looks really good. Next, we got Jacob Murrell, striker going to Georgetown from McDowell School in Maryland. I've been talking about that a little bit talked about them last year with Richie Nichols, I believe, and can talk about them again. He was actually the National Gatorade Player of the Year. Very good. He had an amazing goal-scoring season. Maryland U.S. Soccer Coach Association Player of the Year. Fall American Team, Fall American Game, won a state championship in the past. Like, everything you can want as a player, he was able to do. Also, ECNL All-American outside of school. Like, really good player. Kind of like an old-school number 9. He's like 6'2". He can score with both of his feet. Again, mobile, not that fast. Pretty strong, good movement. Like, smart decision-making in the final third. I think his hold-up play and his ability in the air could really get better. Like, it's something that seems like he could develop. Like, he's 6'2", but I think he could do a lot better in the air, start scoring some chances there. But he scored an absurd amount of goals. And, like, in some of the games I watched, he was playing defensive midfield for a little bit. Like, he probably could have gotten more. Like, he was, like, Player of the Year for a reason. I think he was Gatorade Player of the Year for, like, off-the-field stuff because he was, like, did, like, some really good charity work to become National Gatorade Player of the Year, but definitely someone to keep your eye on for on-the-field stuff. We'll stick in the DMV for a bit. We'll go with Parker Sloan next. An attacker, could play striker, attacking mid, wing, whatever. He's going to Virginia. And I should mention now, because he's the last Virginia player I'm going to talk about, There's one attacker who I really liked who's going to Virginia, David Okori. He's out of Hungary. The only footage of him was one game where he came on and, he had an assist, I believe. Like, he's already playing pro in the Hungarian second tier. I did like the look of him, but I just didn't have the footage necessary to, really put him on this list, and, we have enough attackers going to Virginia already, so fine with leaving him off. But back to Parker Sloan, he's from Powhatan in Virginia, Virginia Gatorade Player of the Year. He was a club All-American as well. And I feel bad for Parker Sloan because, that Top Drawer Soccer thing I was talking about, they had, ratings for all the club Americans, and, all of them were 4 stars except for Parker Sloan, who they gave a 2-star, which that felt mean. You didn't have to do that. But as a player, he's 5'10", fast. I really like his first touch. A solid finisher. He said that he needs to work on his back to goal thing in an interview before, but honestly, it looked a lot better than some other strikers I'm going to be talking about, and I think could be good. Might play more as a wing moving forward. He's right-footed, but his left was pretty good. I think he'd play on either the right or the left, depending on the system they have. But seems like he'd be a very good player. I'm excited to see him play. Then we got Brian St. Martin, one of the few defenders on this list. Going to be looking like he's playing a right back in Maryland. He's from Mount St. Joseph, which is another thing I'm repeated. Fall All-American game, he was part of that. I don't think he has an official title, but he had an unbeaten season in a COVID-shortened year, so, close enough. 6-foot-tall player, very good in the air, fast, good crosser, solid defensively, just very solid as a right back. Definitely somebody to keep your eye on. I think his brother got drafted into the MLS. The talent is definitely there, and someone to keep an eye on Maryland. I think he'll be a good player. Last guy on the DMV I want to talk about is Wayne Frederick. I'm not really sure about his position. He was playing an attacker at his school. I saw him listed as defender before. I think he's listed as a midfielder on Duke's roster. I can't say for sure. He's from St. Albans, which is a school in the D.C. area. He was part of the D.C. City Champions, though he was not D.C. Player of the Year because Christian Fletcher exists. The guy who was rumored to have gone to Dortmund. Seems like he's going to get a homegrown deal with DC United now. His team was actually in Maryland, but they played each other a couple times, and Wayne Frederick was going toe-to-toe with him. Even though they were both playing strikers, so it's not like they played each other, but they were going back and forth and doing pretty well. Outside of high school, he was on the Trinidad and Tobago U20 provisional roster, but he wasn't on the final one. I'm going to assume he declined, so that's good for us. 6 feet tall. I think he plays a good bit of left back and left wing, but he's a right-footed player. He's pretty quick, good dribbling. Size and athleticism is good. I think he could be a defender. I have no idea what position he's going to end up playing, but someone who I do really like, and looks like he's going to be a real talent. I mentioned before how Ohio has a ton of really good players, and starting things off there, we got Marco Valentic, a midfielder who's going to Bucknell University and coming out of Kirkland, Ohio, and he looks very good. Fall All-American team. He's also a Scholar Athlete of the Year, which is really cool. He went to the Croatia U15 camp when he was younger. He was born in Ohio, but dual national panic, I guess. But the fact that Croatia had him in the squad, they sought him out, that's a pretty big deal. He's a very good technical player. He has it technically. I thought he has some very good feet. He's not afraid to get stuck in. Has some really good passes, has some goals in him as well. He was in a Croatia camp. He's a very good technical player. We see the midfielders that they have produced. Athletically, he could be a little bit better. He is 5'9", but very good technical player and someone to watch. Next, we got Brock Kuiper, striker going to Belmont. He's from Archbishop Molier, which is where Ken Griffey Jr. is from. He's part of the Fall All-American team and the All-American game. He's part of the National League Team of the Year outside of school, and 6'5" striker, mobile for his size, though. 6'5", that's huge after the Jackson Neighbors thing, kind of discounting it, but a very big player, a good striker, good in the air, can finish, can dribble pretty well, hit a pass, his team had him take set pieces, like when they're hitting it into the box. He's 6'5", and they had him hit those passes, so he's good at set plays. I thought he had some pretty good movement as well. Like some things to work on. He didn't really press. I think his hold-up play could be a lot better. Like technical ability could be better, but looks like a very good prospect, especially for a 6'5" striker. Then we got Cameron Kist, a midfielder going to Loyola Chicago from New Albany in Ohio, part of the Fall American team, and very good player, like 5'9", pretty good speed, good ball control. Like so when he hits a pass, he like weighs it very well. He's not afraid to get stuck in. He plays like a good bit of flair, plays one touches easily. Like I think he's got it technically. Like good left foot as well. Like maybe like athleticism is like a little bit holding back, but he's a very good player. He was like really close to being put on that like top few players that I had at the very beginning. He's very good. Next we got Drew Boddicker, a wing going to Northern Kentucky, which is a D1 school. I wasn't sure actually. He's from Centerville, and he's part of the Fall American team again. Played a bit with FC Cincinnati, which is pretty cool. He's a very good winger. Like I say he's quick. Like he's not that fast, but he gets in behind defenses very well. Like left foot is noticeably good. Like he is right-footed, but his left is good. He's like almost two-footed. Very strong in the final third. Dribbles well. Like he is a winger. Like he's not like as technical as like a couple of his midfielders, but I think he's fine. Someone who could be pretty good. Like looks like a promising guy. Our last guy at Ohio is Jaden Lunsford, midfielder going to Bowling Green. Ready for some action there from Dublin Scipio. Part of the Fall American team, similar to his other midfielders from Ohio talked about. 5'9", good first touch, like somewhat quick, like pretty good dribbler. I think he's got it technically. Like I've seen enough from him that's like very good. I don't think he like came up with as many goals as other players. I think when I was watching, like he really didn't like his left foot, so that's something to work on. But when you at this level, when you see a player as good technically as him, like that, you have to take notice of it. Like he was good enough to become an All-American. Like he's a very promising player. Next, after Ohio, we're going to be going to Michigan, where we got two Michigan State players to talk about. Jack Gugamos is first. Could be either a midfielder or a forward. He's out of Okemos in out of the East Lansing area, or out of East Lansing itself. Like he's a very local guy. Michigan U.S. Soccer Player of the Year, Fall All-American Team, Division I champions for Michigan. Like looks very promising. He's 5'11", left-footed. So if he's playing as a forward, definitely something to look out for. He can cut it on his right foot or left foot from the right side. Quick, very good scorer, comfortable dribbling, creative. He has a good first touch and can pick out a really good pass. He looks like a very good player, someone who can do very well at the next level. I'm looking forward to watching him. Also going to Michigan State is Jonathan Stout, a midfielder. He'd probably play forward as well. He's from Wyoming Potterhouse, Michigan Division IV champion. He's like 5'10", good dribbler, can put the ball in the back of the net, like good first touch, can pick out a pass. Like I liked his speed. He can press very well. Does one touches very well as well. Like he was only asked to do so much technically from the stuff that I saw. Like I couldn't really gauge like how good he was, but like he might have that baseline technical ability. I'm not sure, and it was kind of hard to gauge his athleticism, but like everything he was asked to do, he did it pretty easily. So definitely somebody I want to see more of at a higher level. Going to be fun to watch him at Michigan State. Next, we're going to Wisconsin, and first player to talk about is Miguel Gonzalez. He's midfielder going to St. Thomas, and St. Thomas, like that is a school that just turned Division I. So like the classes of schools that just turned Division I, they typically haven't been that good. So I wasn't expecting too much. Like he's not an All-American player. I'm just looking at him because he was a state champion with Marquette University High, another school I've talked about previously. But he is good. He is the high school version of like an Andrea Pirlo, which, like, again, if you want to be a top level player as that archetype of a player, like you have to be special. So will he be able to get that far? I don't know, but he's very good technically. He can pick out a pass with the best of them, like extremely technical player, like deep lying playmaker. He played one touches very well, and like really good. He's surprisingly decent in the air as well. He's only 5'8" though, so I don't think that sticks at a higher level. Like, he has some weaknesses. Athleticism is probably the lowest on this list, but he is amazing on the ball. Definitely the best there. Next, we got... Oh, I remembered I wanted to look up this guy's name before I got here, but here I am. Denis Khrushchevnikov. I think I got that right. A striker going to Davidson. He'll be playing on Ice Jackson Neighbors. He's from Shorewood in Wisconsin. Wisconsin Gatorade Player of the Year, Fall American Team. Led his team to the Division III championship in Wisconsin. Also part of the ECNL Select game. 6'1" striker. Likes his athleticism. Pretty good feet. He can move the ball around pretty quickly. Plays physically as well. Like, he really gets back to the defenses. I think there's potential for good hold-up play. It's not really there yet. I think his first touch needs to get a little bit better. Like, not that technical, but he's a big striker. He's got a good bit of talent, something to keep an eye on. Next, we got Mitchell Dryden. Forward, could be a bit more of a midfielder, going to Wisconsin. He's out of Whitefish Bay. He was a Wisconsin U.S. Soccer Player of the Year. He was on the Fall American team, and as well, he played in the Fall American game. He was part of the National League Best 11. Like, 6'2", really good finisher, good passing ability as well. Quick, he has some good movement and solid in the air. Like, a lot that you'd like to see. Like, I feel like he could be a bit better technically and dribbling as well. Like, that can improve. But he's a very top-level striker, someone to definitely keep an eye on. Last player out of Wisconsin, I think last player out of Midwest I want to talk about is Lucas Nethus. Winger going to Marquette. He's from Powauke, Wisconsin. And, Fall American team, made the Fall American game. 5'7", low center of gravity. I think it helps him. Like, this is a guy who wasn't a player who had a highlight tape. You had to go out and, like, search for his games. And, like, immediately it's like, oh, yeah, this guy's good. Really nice first touch, like, noticeably fast. Dynamic attacker, good vision, can put the ball in the back of the net, makes things happen. Like he is a winger, so, like, technical ability isn't, like, as good, but, like, he's a winger. It's fine. Like, just very dynamic player. Like, pops off the screen immediately. Going to be fun to watch in the Big East. Next, we have a player hailing from Wilmington, North Carolina. Aiden Payne. He's a striker going to NC State. He's from New Hanover, where he was Gatorade Player of the Year, U.S. Soccer Player of the Year for North Carolina, Fall American Team, North Carolina 4A champions, and was named the USA Today High School Player of the Year. Like, elite high school player. He's 6'3", very good in the air. Like, surprisingly quick for his size. Like, not like mobile for his size, moves around. He's surprisingly quick. A great finisher, obviously. Got some good dribbling. Like, I thought his hold-up play was very good. Passing was okay. First touch is, like, all right. He's, like, only so good technically, but he's a 6'3" striker. I thought, like, a little bit lanky, like, could definitely bulk up a bit, but I think that will come. But looks very good. I think maybe his movement could improve as well, and I think he's going to be redshirting at NC State because, like, he's not listed on the roster, but he, like, is coming. Like, USA Today says he's going to NC State. Like he's going to be there, but he's not on the roster, so I think he's being redshirted this year, but someone to watch in the future. Could be a very good player. Next, we got Malachi Jones, midfielder going to Liscombe. He's out of Grace Christian in Tennessee, and he's somebody who was, him and, like, his whole huge family was, like, adopted, and, like, their family kind of turned that school into a powerhouse. Like, he was really good. Tennessee Gatorade Player of the Year, winter and spring All-American, like, Tennessee Division II champion, Division II Class A champion, like, really good accolades there. He's 6 foot tall, good feet, can really hit a dead ball. Like, I thought I liked his athleticism, good goal scorer, dribbling, like, speed's there, can use his left foot well, like, a solid player, can do anything well. His brother Levi is also going with him to Liscombe, so second year in a row, we got twins going to a southern school, I think, which is interesting. But Malachi Jones, definitely someone to watch. Next, we're going to be going up to the Northeast. We're going to New York and talk about Daniel DiLapito. Midfielder, can play the 10 position, going to Fordham. He's from Somers in New York, which is in Westchester County, which is where the X-Men are from. Don't know why I mentioned that. New York Gatorade Player of the Year, New York U.S. Soccer Player of the Year, Fall American team. He's part of the National League Best 11. Really nice left foot for a right-footed player. Like, good finisher, and like his passing is probably the best on the high school level. Like, some really good vision. Like, can pick out a pass with the best of them. Like, aside from that, like, technical ability could be a bit better, but like really special passing. Led his school to the New York State Championship. I think I forgot to mention that. And overall, just a promising player to look out for. Fordham's got a couple of good players. His teammate is also going with him to Fordham, Bennett Liner, I believe. So yeah, so something to keep an eye on. Next, we got Juan Camilo Ponce. His name's listed as Camilo on the Boston College website, and they're pretty cool with allowing their players to use a nickname, so I think that's what he likes to go by. He's from Amityville, New York, which is in Long Island. Fall American team. School had previously won the Class A state championship, lost to Daniel Sommer's team this year. 5'9", like, noticeably creative player. Plays a lot of flair, like, good dribbling. Left foot was pretty solid, can pick out a pass, like, pretty quick, not like a super burner, but we've talked about, like, a lot of players, like these guys from Ohio, like, you know, decent athleticism. I like his pressing ability as well. Like, he can really get down, like, make something happen. Like, looks like a solid player going to Boston College. Going to be seeing him in the ACC. Next, we're going to Connecticut. We're going to be talking about Sam Montalto, striker going to Providence University. He's from Stonington in Connecticut. He's part of the Fall All-American team. Led his squad to a Connecticut Class M title. M for medium, I'm pretty sure. 6'3". He is allegedly right-footed, but this guy has to be diagnosed ambipedal. Like, I swear, I was watching him play. I was like, okay, this guy's a left-footed player. That's something to keep an eye on. Then he goes up and takes a penalty, and he takes it with his right foot. Like, and if you're going to be putting penalties in your, like, highlight tape, like, I used to think it was annoying, but it can actually be good to say, okay, that's what foot this guy is. But, yeah, has some good hold-up play, pretty quick. Good in the air at 6'3". Like, I liked his movement, his finishing. I think he could get a lot stronger as he grows. Like, has some nice passes, good presser. Like, he probably would have been Connecticut's Player of the Year, but he did get a little bit of an injury that held him back. And, you know, could be a little bit better technically, but he's a 6'3" striker. Like, he looks really good. The 2-footness is going to help him out. Another player going to the Big East. Next, we got Colin Hughes, a striker going to Colgate. He's from Worcester, Massachusetts. He's part of that New England Prep League, which is kind of like separate from like the rest of the Northeast schools. They have like their own thing going. His squad was the New England Prep Division I champion previously. He made the All-American team and the All-American game, ECNL All-American, like, really talented player, 6 foot tall, left-footed, good in the air, like, can hit a dead ball, like, really hits a ball hard, like his ball goes flying into the back of the net. I thought he, like, had some very good movement, not, like, ultra technical, but he does have some good hold-up play, like, quick but not a burner, moves around very well, and, like, looks like a solid striker, just a very good player. Next, we got Christian Bajar, midfielder, possibly defender. He's listed on Boston College as a defender, going to Boston College. From Brooks School, part of the Fall American team. He's 5'9", left-footed, so I'd assume he'd be playing left back. He's listed as defender. I was impressed with his defensive ability as a midfielder. Very good athleticism, can pick out a pass. Might be a good idea to move out of the midfield, but I think he'd be a very good left back. Like, the athleticism, I think his crossing would be pretty good. Defensive ability I liked. Could be a really good player. Next, another guy who's for sure a left back, Zachary Sardi Santos. He's going to be going to Harvard. He's from Milton. Teammates with Henry Richter, I believe. Let me double check. I think he is. He was also a part of that New England MLS Next U19 team, which is very impressive. He was actually starting over Matamos Rumley if he would have played in that, played as a left back. And yeah, Milton, that's the school Henry Richter is from. And yeah, this guy, former U.S. Youth International. He's a former futsal national. He was a futsal national with Pachota, with Brummett, with Van Deventer. Like, he definitely has the skill. Like, he's 5'8", He's quick but not super fast. He can pick out a pass. Very good building out of the back. I think his crossing could be a little bit better, but I think it's something that can improve. Defensively, could work out a little bit better. I think he could move to the midfield and be a pretty good player. Like, he definitely has the technical ability. He knows the game very well, but like, similarly to how I mentioned, like with Ryan Thompson, like he might have already maxed out his talent. Like, he's been playing at a really high level for a really long time. Like, it's going to be interesting to see if he can improve at Harvard, because like at that point, like, you've done everything. Like, it's going to be tough to get much better than that. And the last player in this list, number 100. So for high school players, probably could have had him in the top 10 really easily. Ian Nanthong, he's a midfielder going to UC Davis. He was committed to Oregon State for a long time. He would have been every team in the Pac-12 or Pac-6 if he would have gone to Oregon State. But instead, he's going to UC Davis. He's from Kaiser in Hawaii. Hawaii Gatorade Player of the Year. Like, nice to go from those New England prep schools to somewhere nice and warm. He's another guy who has it technically, just immediately jumped out at how good he was. Pretty quick, like decent speed, good with a burst. Can hit a pass pretty well, liked his work rate. He's really not afraid to get stuck in. He can do a lot defensively. Like, I feel like his end product could get a little better, but I think it's going to develop. And Ian Nanthong, like, he's going to be a very good player. Definitely one of the best technical players in high school. And yeah, that's everybody I wanted to talk about. All 100 players. This took a long time to do. Like, again, if you enjoy this, please like and subscribe. Just run through where everybody's going. At Boston College, Juan Ponce, Christian Bajar. At Duke, we got Keenan Hott and Wayne Frederick. Louisville, David Bacuzzo. NC State, Aiden Payne. North Carolina, we got Sam Williams and Riley Burge. I'm used to Sanderberg, Riley Burge. At Notre Dame, we got Wyatt Borsto, Sebastian Green, and Mitch Ferguson. At Pitt, we got Jackson Gilman. Virginia, we got Amari Sully, Andy Solins, Owen Walls, and Parker Sloan. Virginia Tech, we got Zach Lesius. Wake Forest, Ethan Johannes, Sam Jones, Cooper Flax, and Alex Kennison. Like, out of the ACC, Wake Forest and Notre Dame are definitely two guys you have to check out. Keenan Hott as well, just because of how good he is at Duke. Then the Big Ten, in Indiana, we got Luca Becerra, Jack Wagner. In Maryland, we got Micah Seeger and Brian St. Martin. At Michigan, Nicholas Dossman and Nolan Miller. Michigan State, Jack Gugamos, Jonathan Stout. Ohio State, Luciano Pachota. Northwestern, we got Chris Staggard, Nigel Prince, Javen Van Deventer, and Henry Richter. Definitely my top school. Going to try to watch a lot of Northwestern this year. Rutgers, we got Ian Abbey. Wisconsin, Mitchell Dryden. Going to the Pac-6, we got Alan Harris at Cal. San Diego State has Tristan Viviani, Austin Brummett, and Baron Drummer. Stanford, we got Takashi Sezaki. UCLA, Tyrone Caramanchi. Colin Wilkerson, or Cam Wilkerson, John Carlos Cortez. And Washington, Michael Sherlock. In the Big East, we got Paul Maralt at Butler. Georgetown, another team to watch, Jack Penayatu, Matamos Rumley, Miles Avery, and Jacob Murrell. Definitely the team to watch in the Big East. Then at Marquette, we got Lucas Nethus, Providence, Sam Montalto, St. John's, Justin Rainey, Villanova, Rafa Ponce de Leon. In the Sun Belt, we got Matthias Johannes. And those soon to be joining is Luciano Natoli at UCF. Then at the MAC, we got Seth Wilson, Levi Stevens, and Stefan Dobrovich at Akron, and Jaden Lunsford at Bowling Green. In the Ivy League, Cornell has Ryan Freiberg, Harvard has Colin McNeil and Zachary Sardi-Santos, Princeton has Jack Jasinski. In the Atlantic 10, Jackson Neighbors and Dennis Kruchnikov are at Davidson. Fordham has Daniel DiLapito and Andre Enseleko. Then Loyola Chicago has Cameron Kist. St. Louis has Carson Gibbs. Then going to the Patriot League, Bucknell has Kade Mcgrath and Marco Valentic. Colgate has Colin Hughes. Lafayette has Sebastian Tiss. And Lehigh has Jason Pinadath. Then the Metro Atlantic has Alex Miller at Quinnipiac. God, I still can't pronounce that. The American has Sammy Colby at Charlotte. Owen Zornick at SMU. Ryan Thompson at Tulsa. And Luciano Natoli, for now, at UCF. Atlantic Sun, Bryce Swanhart at Liberty. Malachi Jones at Lipscomb. Alex Barnett at North Florida. Big South has Bubby Towns at Radford. Missouri Valley has Brock Kuiper at Belmont. And Drake has Damien Segura and Ryder Barrett. In the Horizon, Northern Kentucky has Drew Boddicker. In the Summit, St. Thomas has Miguel Gonzalez. In the WAC, we got a Cole Kelnick, Ansu Kenna, and Philly Valapuda at Grand Canyon. Utah Tech has Tyson Nguyen. Utah Valley has Elijah Gozo. The Western Coast Conference has Kamani Dade at Loyola Marymount and Jose Maria Barria at Pacific. And then the Big West has Luke Schaefer and Thomas Jackson Miller at Cal Poly, Ian Namtong at UC Davis, Diego Otoya at UC Irvine, and Eddie Valleda at UC Santa Barbara. Now the squads, definitely a team to watch is Grand Canyon. Ansu Kenna looks very promising. Cole Kelnick's a really strong goalkeeper. Philly Valapuda. Another squad was, we go through Georgetown, Jack Paniotto, Matamos Rumley, very good players there. UCLA's a squad to watch. San Diego State, Northwestern. Then I'd probably go with Duke just for Keenan Hott. But Wayne Frederick as well, he's good. Everybody on this list is good. Notre Dame and Wake Forest and Virginia. There's definitely the squads to watch. Though I should just say, expect a good amount of these players to get redshirted. I think last year I did this, 33 players end up being redshirted. And, don't get too used to these players. 33 got redshirted, a ton transferred. I think 9 are already out of college, whether it's through professional, just stopped playing, pursuing other things. I'm under no pretense that everyone will make it, but I think we have some really good players, and it's going to be fun to watch. It's really good to do this. It's getting pretty late, going to head to bed, and man, it's really fun. Again, like and subscribe, because this did take a while to do. And yeah, that's all I have to talk about. See ya.